a black bear. Okay.
Yes.
That means I'm gonna start?
Yes. We could start. It's 9:30.
All right. And it's 7:30 p.m. my time.
Yeah.
So, good morning, people in Taipei, right?
Taipei, yeah.
Okay. So, today I was thinking about the subject for tonight, clipping children's wings.
今天我正在思考，我今天晚上，因为他们现在那边是晚上，要谈的主题就是，我中文我翻成让孩子成为自己，但英文其实是倒过来讲，就是如何把孩子的翅膀给剪了一下，就是如何去让一个孩子挫败这个主题。
And that is quite a subject. To just do that in an hour, that is quite something, yeah.
要谈论到这个主题，在1个小时以内呢，其实是一件不容易的事，是一个很大的主题。
So, to get into it, clipping children's wings is all about the way our educational system is constructed.
就当我们要去谈论我们如何去阻碍一个孩子的发展，我们必须要从教育的体系开始谈起。
Our eyes and all our senses that we have, and they are magnificent. The eyes, the ears, our sense of taste, our sense of smell, our skin, they're all senses.
就是我们的感官，比方说我们的眼睛、我们耳朵，然后我们的嗅觉、触觉，是非常了不起的，是非常棒的这些感官知觉。
So these senses that we have, they're all part of our defense mechanism that we built in millions of years.
这些感官系统呢，其实它是属我们百万年以来所运用来作为防御机制的一些系统。
And when I say millions of years, I mean maybe people are not that old, but we are an end result of an evolution from animal to a human being.
当我说百万年以来呢，并不是说我们能活那么老，而是说我们此刻的我们都是演化的一个成果，从动物一直来到人类这个形态。
And if you look at our brain, the way it is constructed, you can clearly see that there are 4 divisions built one on top of each other.
如果你看一下我们的大脑的结构呢，其实很明显，你可以看出来，它其实分成4个部分，然后每一个部分叠在每个部分的上面。
And one of the oldest brains that we have, we call the reptilian brain.
我们其中呢，最古老的那一层脑，我们称为爬虫脑。
And we know that brain as the fight-flight system, the sympathetic system of our body.
那我们也知道，大脑里面有一个叫战与逃的这个机制，也就是交感神身体的交感神经系统。
That fight-flight brain, it responds to immediate danger, and the bottom line of it is to keep us safe, for us to be able to survive.
战或逃的这个脑呢，是在回应环境中直接的危机，然后它 他最终想要为我们做到的 ，Sorry, I need to mute somebody。最终想要为我们做到的，就是让我们能够求存，能够生存下来。
And for us humans, the eyes, which are part of that sympathetic brain, for us humans, the eyes are our most used sense.
其实我们的人类的眼睛呢，就是这个交感神经系统或这个战或逃的系统里面，最经常被使用的一个感官。
Now there is something about the eyes. They need a specific space for them to be able to be at peace, to be restful.
You mean the eyes? Sorry, it's background noise. Somehow, I don't know who. Okay, sorry. Can you say that again? Because there was noise there.
All right. For us humans, the eyes are our most used way of looking at the outside world.
对人类来说呢，眼睛是我们最经常用来看出去外在世界的一个感官。
All right, so these eyes and senses, all of them, they had years and years, hundreds of thousands of years to develop the way they are today.
那这些感官呢，有在就是好几万年的这个演化的历史。
Now, the last 100 years of our evolution, we have constructed all kinds of stuff that will, well, where our eyes and also our ears had no time to assimilate them in how we use our eyes.
就是在过去100年来呢，这个世界发展到一个程度，是我们的眼睛和我们的耳朵是来不及去有点像是说去适应或应变那样的发展。
So we had to adapt to electricity, to light bulbs, which is an unnatural way of extending the day.
所以我们必须要运用什么电啊，或是灯啊，然后用这些比较非自然的方式，让我们的一天，让我们的白天可以被延长。
The same is the case for all the music boxes that we have. Our ears are not ready yet to accept that kind of noise.
同样的，比方说像音响啊，或是我们听的这些音乐啊，其实我们耳朵的配备，就是耳朵天生的设计，并没有办法去并不适合那么直接的去接受这样子的所谓的噪音。
But going back to the eyes and clipping wings.
回到眼睛跟如何就是挫败一个孩子，或是让他折翼这件事情。
All right, the first thing to understand is our eyes are used to a certain space. I said that before, but all right.
就是我们的眼睛呢，是习惯在某些空间状态里的。
It's a very simple principle, and it comes from the days before we were humans.
它是来自于非常简单的原理，然后它也是来自于我们还没有成为人类之前的那个时期。
And our brain is also a non-human brain from the time before we were humans, like our fight-flight system.
而我们人类的脑呢，在最原始的那个脑是来自于我们还不是人类的那个时期的那个原始脑开始的，然后呢也是战与逃机制的那个脑。
It's very simple. When we were still animals, there was a territorium around us, And in that territorium, we would be safe.
当我们还是动物的时候，其实我们是有领域性的，在那样子的领域里面，其实我们是安全的，在动物的状态。
And so animals, but also us, we are continuously checking our territorium.
无论是动物还是现在的我们，其实我们都持续不断的在检视我们在我们的领域里面正在发生什么。
And we do that continuously without being aware of that.
而事实上呢，我们即使在这么做，我们自己都不知道我们正在这么做。
And what it means for our eyes, when our territorium is empty, when there is nothing coming into the territorium,
对我们眼睛来说呢，如果它的领域周围的空间里头什么都没有的话，
if something is coming into the territorium, it might be something big, and that would be chasing us, then we are supposed to be food.
就是如果这个时候呢，有一个，比方说一个比较大的什么闯进我们的领域，也许要来追赶我们，然后我们可能会被吃掉。
Remember, our brain that looks at the brain that's connected to the eyes is still an animal brain.
记得哦，我们大脑部分跟眼睛连接的部分的那个脑，仍旧是属于动物性的脑。
For our eyes and our brain, something big is dangerous and something small might be food.
就是对我们的眼睛来说呢，那个动物的脑呢，看到一个什么大的东西可能是危险的，或者一个什么小的东西可能对我们来说是食物。
It sounds silly, but we are wired that way. We still have that animal brain.
听起来很荒谬，但是呢，我们的脑就是以这种方式，是这样子的回圈，这样的回路，这样子的设置的。因为这个脑它仍旧是动物性的脑。
And the point is, when nothing comes into our territorium, our eyes and brain are totally relaxed.
也就是说，其实当在我们的领土领域范围里面呢，没有什么东西闯进来，我们的眼睛还有我们的这个动物的脑呢是放松的。
When something comes in the territorium, now our eyes have to focus on what is coming into the territorium.
当有个什么东西进了我们的领域的时候呢，我们的眼睛就需要去聚焦，去看到底是什么来到我们周围了。
That focus creates stress hormones in our brain.
这样子的聚焦就会造成了我们脑部去分泌压力荷尔蒙。
Now, going back to children and them going to school.
所以回到孩子身上，他们去学校。
What we present to them is basically a classroom with walls.
他们在学校里面呢，看到的就是呢，教室有4面墙。
And that's what the room is. It has walls.
教室就是会有4面墙。
And for the eyes, they now, and these are small children, for the eyes, they now have always something that is in their way of being relaxed. There is a wall. So the territorium suddenly gets smaller and smaller and smaller. And the brain has to create stress hormones because of the wall.
对一个小孩来说呢，眼睛看到这4面墙，就好像是他们的那个领域要越来越小，越缩越小，越缩越小，然后他们的脑就会创造出压力荷尔蒙。
It's a very simple thing. There is a wall, the brain creates stress hormones, or in other words, fight, flight hormones.
也就是说，因为这些墙、这些教室、这个区，就是缩小的区域呢，让他的脑分泌压力荷尔蒙。换句话说呢，也就是他们的脑会进入这个战或逃的状态。
So without knowing, and we don't know this, and teachers don't know this, but putting children in a room will create stress chickens. Excuse the words.
就是呢，老师不知道，然后这个成人不知道，就事实上把孩子呢放在这种小小的禁闭，就是禁闭的房间里面呢，是会创造出一群压力很大的孩子。
And usually we spend 10 years in school. So 10 years we are programmed to produce stress hormones.
所以通常我们会在学校至少10年的时间，所以10年以来呢，我们被程式化了，我们被程式化去一直要分泌这个压力荷尔蒙。
On top of that, and this is, well, really, really annoying.
而且在这个之外呢，还有一件更令人困扰的事情。
When we spend so much time in school, we get also, our eyes get used to just a few distances.
当我们在学校那么久的时候，我们的眼睛就会习惯于看比较近距离的东西。
We get used to almost a fixed distance from where we're sitting to the blackboard.
我们甚至会去习惯呢，那个就是我们坐的位置到黑板的那个距离，就变成视觉的一个习惯。
That is one distance that our eyes get fixed at.
这个距离我们的眼睛会去固定下来了。
The second distance is from where we're sitting to the book on the table.
那第二个我们会习惯的距离，就是眼睛到书本的这距离。
And the third distance is from our eyes to the computer screen.
另外一个就是呢，眼睛跟电脑的距离。
So in those 10 years that we spent in school, our eyes really get fixed only on certain distances, and they lose the ability to zoom in and out, to be flexible.
然后在这些10年的教育里面呢，我们的眼睛就只会习惯这些距离，然后失去了那个就是 zoom in zoom out， 就是聚焦的那个，或是看远看近的那个弹性。
So hence the expression that we become basically, we sit in a box, and if our eyes are used to fixed distances, our brain will also be used to fixation because of those distances.
你就想啊，我们就是这十年来呢，我们就坐在一个小小的盒子里面，然后眼睛呢也只会在这几个距离里面有转换，那我们的脑呢也会进入某一种僵固的状态。
If our eyes lose the ability to be flexible, our brain, which follows the eyes, will also lose the ability to be flexible.
眼睛失去了灵活度，头脑同样的也会失去那样的灵活度。
And you can see that after people graduate, after 10, 15 years in school, they're unable to think outside of the box.
那你就会看到呢，他们10年、15年后的教育之后呢，孩子们就无法呢跳脱框架来思考了。
On top of that, and this is even stranger,
一个更奇怪的事情
this fixation on the blackboard, on the book, and on the computer is a fixation in a two-dimensional world.
就是那种习惯或是固着于黑板或是电脑的这种，也就等于呢，你固着在某一个2D 世界里面，平面的2D 世界里。
So I remember working with kids in my practice, very young kids.
我记得呢，在我的头荐骨执行跟那个很年轻的小孩一起工作的时候。
And their brain, their mind was so vivid, so alive. With some kids would have little friends that were invisible.
就他们的脑呢，非常的活生生、活灵活现，甚至有些孩子他们会有一些看不见的朋友，就是视觉，就是想象中的朋友。
And other kids would just be seeing auras and all kind of stuff that we adults have lost the ability to see.
还有很多孩子可以看见好多好多东西，是我们成人无法看见的。
So when I say clipping children's wings, what I mean basically is that we force our children to live and study in a two-dimensional world. And yes.
就是当我说啊，我们阻碍孩子的发展，或是让小孩子的翅膀被折下来的意思，就是说，我们让一个孩子呢，我们强迫了一个孩子进入了一个平面2D 的世界。
So this is for me immensely debilitating.
对我来说，这个对孩子是极端的就是影响了一个孩子发展非常非常大的。
And talking about different dimensions, talking about other dimensions that what we know.
当我们在谈论到就是我们所知道的其他的向度或是其他的次元。
So how many dimensions are there? I don't know.
到底有多少的向度或多少的次元？其实我不知道。
Because I was also brought up in a two-dimensional world.
因为我也是在这个2D 世界成长的。
On top of that, there is another thing with our education. It is not about individuals.
另外一个，在我们的教育系统里面，还有一件事就是，这个是教育系统并没有鼓励个体性。
We are all born different. We are all individual.
我们每个人一出生呢，都是一个独立的个体。
And then putting us all together in a school, having to listen and learn all the same things, just doesn't make sense.
我们进入一个教育系统，一个学校，所有的人都学习同一件事情，其实是不合理的。
Each one of us that I'm talking to is so different than the next person.
每一个呢，我面前的孩子跟另外一个我面前的孩子都是完全不同的。
And if we're all considered to be exactly the same and have to go through exactly the same exams.
如果我们每一个人都被认为是一样的，并且都考一样的就是考试都是考一样的考卷。
That just means that each and everyone's own genius is not being nourished.
也意味着我们每个人内在的那个天才都没有被滋养。
I am absolutely convinced that each and everyone who I'm talking to is a genius.
我非常非常确信，我遇见的每一个人，跟他相遇的每一个人都是天才。
And the strange thing is, or no, that's not strange, but each and everyone I'm talking to knows that they are a genius.
而且呢，事实上我知道每一个人某个程度上都知道他自己是天才。
That doesn't mean that we all are Einsteins.
我不是说每个人都是爱因斯坦。
How boring would that be?
如果每个人都是爱因斯坦的话，那有多无聊啊！
Some of us are excellent bakers. Others are excellent writers. Others have excel at bodywork.
有些人呢是很棒的厨师，有的人呢是很棒的身体工作者。
So I'm just telling you all of this. If you want to have children,
只是我想跟你分享这些，就是如果你想要生小孩，
well, yeah, this is difficult. You know, there is almost no alternative than the schools we know.
这的确很困难，因为事实上我们几乎没有什么其他的做法，因为就是只有现在就是教育系统里面就是这样的学校。
So how to change? How to be sure that our next in line, our offspring, has going to get a quite different upbringing?
那我们要如何去做些改变，或是确保我们的下一代呢，能够有不一样的成长环境呢？
Oh, I forgot something, and something very important.
我忘了讲一个很重要的。
And that is on top of just putting our kids in a box, the schoolroom, we also make education into a competition.
就是刚刚提到了，除了我们的那个教育是把孩子放在一个方盒子里面以外，这个教育里面呢，还鼓励竞争。
On top of that, each and every one of us has their own space, their own speed to evolve.
每一个人呢都有自己的需要自己的空间，有自己的速度来成长。
So how to change all this? Well,
那我们
that's
要如何
difficult.
来改变呢？很困难。
One of the things that we are trying to do here in the community
我们其中一个在我们这边的社区里面会做的，
and this also happened in Europe when I was still living in Europe.
就是在欧洲也有一些人这么做。
We were in Europe, we were teaching Craniosacral to 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, boys and girls.
就在欧洲呢，我们会去教那个7、8岁的小朋友头荐骨。
And at the same time, I got a school so far as to agree to a full program.
目前呢，我有遇到一些学校同意去把头荐骨的这个教学纳入他们的课程中。
Which means that they would start the Craniosacral program, and by the age of 18 years, they would have gone through the full program and get the diploma of a craniosacral therapist at age 18 years old.
也就是说呢，一直到他们18岁结业之后呢，他们就会完成完整的头荐骨训练， 然后得到一个认证。
And then this was 2008, and then the financial crisis hit.
那个时候呢是2008年，然后那时候是全球金融海啸的时候。
So the program I'm talking about just got started, but then immediately finished because there was no money to pay for Craniosacral teacher to teach the kids.
所以那个时候呢，才刚刚开始萌芽的这个计划呢，就被迫终止，因为没有足够的钱去支付头荐骨执行师来教这些小孩。
And now, so many years later, in the community where I live, we're going to restart that program.
那现在呢，在我居住的这些社区里面呢，我们要再重新启动这样的计划。
On top of that, we're also not going to teach them how to do Cranio on each other, but also on horses.
我们不单会教他们如何给彼此头荐骨，我们也会教他们如何给马头荐骨。
Imagine a 9-year-old or 10-year-old working on a huge horse.
想象那种一个9岁的小孩，然后在对一只很大的马做头荐骨。
Imagine the self-confidence that wakes up in those kids.
去想象在孩子里面的那个自信被唤醒是怎么样的。
And horses, they are real. They respond immediately to your feelings.
那马呢？他们是真的可以立即的，在感受上面回应你的。
There is no mind involved. If you get into your mind, the horse will let you know by stepping on your foot or something like that.
其实呢，在这个给予的过程中呢，是没有头脑的，但一旦你的头脑介入了，那个马就会回应你，用它的脚踩你一下。
So this would, of course, play out outside, not in a classroom.
当然，这个不会在教室里面做嘛，这一定得在室外。
So what I want to say with clipping our kids' wings is that we have to try to get an alternative education into schools.
所以我想要谈论这个主题的其中一个主因是，我想要讲的是，我们必须要把一些找到另外一个方式，另外一条路径，加入我们目前的教育体系里面。
So instead of having a full program where kids are really forced into their brains with calculus and reading and all that stuff, instead of only that competitive education,
就是在那个一些固定的，比方说什么微积分啊，然后作文啊这些科目，而且呢，孩子必须在这当中竞争之外，
there should be at least the balance between educating the mind and being, and that's not an education. The mind needs to be educated. No mind just is.
所以呢，所以必须要有个平衡在，就是除了我们教育头脑以外呢，我们要来到另外一端，就是甚至我们不能说教育，是让我们的头脑进入无念的这个状态，或是没有头脑的状态与有头脑的状态必须是要平衡的。
Especially with our kids nowadays, with all the games, all the phones, all the computer games, it's all mind stuff.
尤其是现在的小孩啊，有那么多 那个就是3C 啊，然后手机啊，然后那个手游啊，这些通通都是很头脑的东西。
And doing that, we deny our kids our most essential treasure that we have.
然后如果是这样子的话呢，其实我们是在就是我们抑制了我们就是很珍贵的孩子的一些发展。
And those of you who do craniosacral,
那些有在给头荐骨的朋友们，
they know what it is to be in no mind and what intelligence you encounter when you go into that no mind space.
你们都会知道呢，什么叫做进入无念的状态，而且你们也会知道，在这个无念的状态里，你们会碰触到是怎么样的一种智慧。
When I say that no mind space, I mean the long tide, the midline, all that space that you have when your mind is just quiet.
当我说无念的时候，我谈论的是当你在你们的中线，还有在那个长潮的状态，你们所处的一个空间。
Then you come in contact with who you really are, one, but also with your basic intelligence.
在那样状态里面，你会遇见你真实的那个样子，然后呢，你也会遇见你最本能的那个智慧。
And that is different than being smart.
那个智慧跟聪明是不一样的。
Being smart means that you can repeat the texts that you read, the text for your exam. You can repeat it better than anybody else. That's being smart.
聪明的意思是呢，你可以去复述或重复你可能读过的资讯、你看过的书，那个是聪明的意思。
But that really reinforces the parrot in you.
这样子的聪明呢，它只是去强化你内在的那个鹦鹉。
And our society is built in such a way that the people who can repeat the best get the highest marks.
那我们的社会的建构方式就是让这种可以很好的去重复一些东西的人，他会得到比较高分。
This has nothing to do with being intelligent.
这个跟有智慧是不一样的。
This is a totally different field, and this is the cranial field. There you connect with that intelligence, which, by the way, is not ours.
那这是一个完全不同的场域，这个我们称为头荐骨的场域，而且这个场域不是我们的。
This intelligence was there before you were born and will still be there after you leave this planet.
这个场域在你出生前就在的，然后在你离开这个星球以后也还在。
It is there before you, and it will still be there when you're long gone.
在你之前它在，在你离开之后很久很久它都在。
And access to that intelligence is what we deny our children.
Access. Sorry, I don't really get this. Access the intelligence.
Access to this intelligence is what we deny our children by the way we educate them.
就是当我们呢用这样的方式教育孩子，其实就是呢让孩子呢去否定了这个孩子去接触到这一层智慧。
So one of the things, there is many things that we can do to reverse this trend, but one of the things we could do is teach our children in school something like craniosacral.
所以我们能够去让这件事情，就是改善这件事情，其中一个方式就是在学校里面，我们可以教导小孩子不一样的东西，比方说像是头荐骨。
So this is quite difficult, but to give them praise for dream time would be wonderful.
或者是呢，我知道这个很困难，但是呢，去鼓励他们有一些幻想时间，会非常棒。做梦、幻想。
But what we do, all right, what we do now is when we see that the kid is going into dream time in class, it gets shunned.
但是呢，在学校里面，如果有些孩子在做白日梦呢，他们会被阻止。
But we know when a child is dreaming in class, it is just going, his mind is just going into a still point.
事实上，我们知道，当孩子在做白日梦或发呆的时候，其实那个孩子是让他们的脑进入静止点。
Just 1 minute.
等我一下。
Let me see, I wrote some things down.
我看一下我的笔记哦。
What we create, and this is quite annoying, what we create is a so-called human, not a real human being.
这个比较令人困扰的就是，我们创造出来的所谓人类，不是真正的人类。
And you see that in the way that the world is at this moment.
你可以看到我们世界现在这个样子。
And it's not a pretty picture. The whole world is in war.
现在这个世界呢，并不是太美丽，有很多的战争。
We have polluted the air.
然后有污染。
We are also polluting the earth.
整个地球都被污染了。
And we keep on doing this.
而且我们是一直在持续的这么做。
So, all right, this puts us really in an awkward place.
所以这个真的会让我们进入一个非常不知道该怎么办的一个状态。
And well, this will be up to all of you individually, but the way that we keep on educating our kids is not going to make it.
Sorry again.
The way that we are dealing with our kids, yeah, we're going to create the same beings as we are.
所以如果呢，我们用这样的方式去对待我们的孩子，我们会让我们的孩子成为跟我们一样。
And we are the people that created this mess.
而我们是呢，创造出这些乱七八糟的人。
So yeah, this is a problem because we have to survive also individually.
这的确是个问题，因为我们每个人也都需要生存。
We have to live in a society who's really structured.
我们必须要让自己存活在一个非常有结构的社会。
So what to do?
怎么办呢？
And the only solution is you cannot change the world. It's impossible.
但是呢，你没有办法改变世界，这是不可能的。
So it comes back to each of you individually. Are you willing? Are you willing? And I repeat it, are you willing to change yourself?
所以这就回到我们每一个人的自身，你有意愿吗？你有意愿吗？我必须要重复的问，你有意愿去改变你自己吗？
And all right, but how can you change yourself? Well, you can at least understand what I'm saying.
你可以怎么样改变自己呢？至少你可以先去理解我在跟你们说的这些。
You can understand it with your mind. That's step one, understanding with your mind how wrong we are with our kids.
然后我们先用我们的头脑，这是第一步，先用头脑去理解呢，对待孩子呢，我们是如何的错的离谱。
And to change ourselves, that means looking inside.
然后去改变我们自己的意思是，我们要往内看。
And give ourselves enough time to be in that long tide or no mind space.
给自己的足够的时间呢，在那个无念的，或是在那个所谓的长潮的一个状态，没有念头的状态。
And that is not an easy task.
这个并不容易。
We have been programmed for 10, 15 years in school into a certain way of thinking and a certain way of living.
因为我们在学校里面有10到15年的时间，用固定的模式在运作。
So it's really to counteract those 15 years or 10 years of programming is not easy.
所以呢，我们要做的事实上是去解开那10到15年在我们身上程式化的一些东西，这并不是这么容易的。
So a program like our Craniosacral program that we offer,
比方说我们这边教导的头荐骨的课程。
well, what we do is we look at all the barriers that we have in our life, all the shadows that we have in our life from our upbringing.
我们会去看在我们的教育里面呢，所有的那些阻碍，所有的那些阴暗的地方，在我们的成长过程中。
And then we look at each and every little thing that happened in our past and just we'll have to let go of it to become clean and clear again like a child.
然后我们会去看在我们过往发生的所有的那些事情，然后我们必须把它放掉，让我们再一次的回到那个最纯净的状态。
And this is not easy because at the same time, we have to live in this competition geared society.
这并不容易，因为在这些事情进行的同时，我们要能够活在这个以竞争为主的世界。
So, yes, it's up to you to decide what to do.
所以这个是由你自己来决定你该怎么做。
But there is a little thing here that I forgot.
在这边有个小小的东西我忘记了。
When you touch the way we touch in Craniosacral Therapy,
当你用我们在头荐骨里面的方式去碰触，
what our brain will do immediately after about 1 minute of touch,
在1分钟之后呢，我们的脑会发生什么事情呢？
our brain and the person we are touching will immediately start producing oxytocin.
就是1分钟之后呢，我们的脑就会开始分泌催产素。
Not just oxytocin, but other of those hormones that create oneness.
不是只有催产素，还有很多其他的荷尔蒙激素，去创造出一种合一的感觉。
And another word for oneness is love.
合一的另外一个字眼就是爱。
And love is the foundation for the human brain.
那爱呢，是人类脑的一个基础。
Not competition, that is the foundation for the reptilian brain.
并不是竞争哦，竞争是爬虫类脑的基础。
But when we learn to touch the way that we do in Craniosacral, you will wake up to love, not just as a practitioner, but also the client will be flooded with that love hormone.
当我们能够用头荐骨的方式去碰触的时候，身为执行师，不是只有执行师而已，你的客户、你的个案也会被这个爱的荷尔蒙充斥。
Plus, on top of that, that foundation of love, when we spend enough time in our mind, we access that intelligence.
除了这些爱，除了爱以外呢，当我们在这个状态里面，在那个空间里面足够长时间，我们就会开始触及到内在的智慧。
I know I don't give sessions anymore, but when I used to give sessions,
我现在没有再给个案了，但是当我还在给个案的时候，
even if I didn't like the client that came to me,
即使是呢那个来到我面前的个案呢，我不喜欢这个人，
I know that after 5 minutes of touch, I'll be totally in love with the client.
我知道呢，只要我碰触他超过5分钟之后，我就会爱上这个人。
Do not take this in a sexual way. There is a different love, which is being one with the client.
请不要用比较断章取义的方式去理解我这句话。爱有非常多不同的层次。
And this is the foundation to change.
而这些呢，就是去改变所需要的基础。
The human race is a fallacy.
Fallacy, I forgot. Fallacy, sorry.
The human race is an experiment that hasn't finished yet.
OK， 人类呢是一场还没有完成的实验。
We are becoming human.
我们才正要成为人类呢。
And looking at the world, you can see they're all still, most of the world is still in the reptilian brain.
当我们在看这个世界的时候，你会发现大部分的世界的人都还在爬虫类脑的状态。
The fight-flight brain,
那个战或逃的脑，竞争的脑。
And we have a chance to really make our children and human beings not in competitive people.
我们有一个机会呢，让我们的孩子，让我们未来的世界不再是那种彼此竞争的状态。
And that shift is the only thing that can save this earth.
而这样的转换是唯一能够拯救这个地球的方式。
Well, there is a little thing that I heard somebody say not so long ago.
没有多久以前呢，我听到有一个人说过这样的话。
And this is quite dramatic, but it is so true.
有点夸张，但是它是真的。
And what he said was, there is some humanity in most people.
他说在大部分的人里面都有某一部分是人性的。
But we have the ability with our cranial work to take that step, to take that switch, to make that switch.
然后呢，在头荐骨的世界里面呢，我们是有能力呢去完成这样子的转换。
And that step is just to access that intelligence that's out there and not go into our smart brain that knows things better than anybody else.
就是去触及到那个智慧，而不是去到那个所谓的聪明的头脑，觉得自己比别人都好的那个部分。
And that intelligence is accessible to each and every one of us. It is not a big deal to access that.
事实上呢，这样的智慧是每一个人都触及得到的，其实真的没有什么大不了。
The only thing we have to do is touch. That's
我
it.
们唯一要做的事
Touch
就是
those
去
other eyes.
碰触，
Yes. Just touch. Close your
就是去
eyes, and the inner world just opens up.
碰触，然后闭上眼睛，你的内在世界就会打开。
And the fun thing is, the more you access the inner world,
你越能够触及到你的内在世界，
the more your intelligence, your genius will try to come out.
你内在的那个天才或是那个智慧就会越来越能够出来。
It's a grim picture the way the world is.
现在这个世界的处境，
But you, each individual, is the answer to that despair.
就是这个处境是如此的令人绝望，但是你们每一个人是这个处境的答案。
Because we all are that intelligence.
因为我们每一个人都是那样的智慧。
Well, I am quite hopeful for this world.
我对这个世界还是充满希望的。
It's only when we are at the brink that the real stuff becomes possible. And the real stuff is to change the way we are in this world.
就是当我们能够在那个状态，就是呢那个真实的状态，然后那个真正我们的那个样子呢，才是能够改变世界的这个部分。
And we are at the brink of, whatever it is. So change, is needed.
而我们已经来到那个边界了，那我们真的需要改变。
So, okay, Kafisha, time for answers and questions.
OK， 现在可以开放一点时间提问。那我会建议，因为怕那个麦克风干扰，我建议大家可不可以把問題打在那个聊天 chat 的地方，然后我直接翻译给Etienne。I asked them to type in the chat box, so it's easier without 懂我意思？如果有任何提问的话，欢迎大家打在那个聊天的地方。
No questions.
没有问题吗？或者是有问题还在打的人，也许举个小手，让我知道。哦，有。
Is it so problematic of our condition? I just can read a little bit of it.
Do you want me to
I
read it
don't
for you?
see the question.
Yeah.
Yes,
If
please.
it's so, yeah. If it's so problematic of our condition being conditioned, why we still survive to date?
Well, why we still survive to date, Kenneth? If I look here in the US where I live, the north of the US is Canada, and they never, ever had more than a 50 degrees Celsius temperatures. Now that's going on for quite a while. And the west coast of the US is totally on fire. Europe, Greece, everything seems to be on fire. The ice is melting. Buy some boots, buy some rubber boots, because soon the water is gonna rise and you need to keep your feet dry. Yes, we are still surviving, but if you look at how the world is going, yeah, that survival will be really become more and more difficult. So it's high time. It's high time to change. And that change means, well, I'm going on too long, Kavisha.
Yes.
Translate, please.
Yeah. Kenneth 问说，如果我们的制约是这么的造成这么多的问题，为什么我们现在还能够活着？然后 Etienne 就说，是的，我们还活到此刻，但是他现在住在美国，在美国北方的加拿大呢，从来没有超过50度的高温，但是现在已经都是在那样的温度。然后美国的东岸、西岸，还有欧洲、希腊都在燃烧着，每一年的气温都在提高，然后我们的海平面每一年都在升高，大家都在呼吁大家要准备一些救生艇，水平面上升的时候，你可能要去逃生。是的，我们还活着，但是这真的是一个非常紧急的时刻，因为如果我们看整个全球的变化，的确我们是在一个非常危险的边缘。
The problem with being conditioned is that you have no clue that you are conditioned.
制约的问题就是呢，你完全不知道你自己是被制约的。
So the first point with this is to understand that we are conditioned. And this is global. This is the whole world.
所以第一步就是呢，你必须要知道你是被制约的，而全球都是这个样子。
So if you understand that, then you can change. If you don't, well, yeah, then condition one.
如果你可以理解到这个部分的话呢，你是可以改变的。但如果你没有办法意识到呢，那其实那个制约就是继续。
And you are listening to me, but so many people, the whole of Taiwan is not, and they're all conditioned, so they don't understand they are conditioned.
比方说你现在在聆听我，但是呢，台湾有很多其他人并没有在听这个课程，他们甚至也不知道他们是被制约的。
But that only says something about your intelligence, that you are able to look at yourself and your situation. It means you are intelligent.
但是你是有那个智慧去看见你自己，你是有那个智慧去可以 知道你自己的。
Any other questions?
Yes, there's a question asking, in our own home, it's also like little boxes, like classroom. So how do we let us go out of that little house for the children?
Yeah, oh, that's difficult. How to get out of it? Well, you have to do something drastically different.
就是我在回的是那个讯息里面的 Amy 的问题，就是怎么样走出那小房子。然后呢 Etienne 说这是的确很困难，你必须要做一些比较大的改变。
And instead of being on the internet and working all night on the computer, you should give time for that other space in yourself, which is that no mind space.
就是与其就让自己不要一直在电脑前面啊，或者是那个上网啊，然后的那个状态，你需要多给自己一个进入没有念头的那个状态。
Which simply means getting out of your mind for a certain amount of time every day and getting to that no mind space. It's as simple as that.
其实就是每一天让你自己进入那个从你头脑中离开，进入那个无念的状态一段时间。
I read also here, given your open up wisdom, do you foresee the prophecy that the end of the world is definitely coming? Well, where there is a beginning, there will be an end. That's the way duality works.
Kenneth 有问说，依据你的那个智慧，你觉得世界末日是一定会来的吗？然后 Etienne 回答说，有始就有终，在二元世界就是这样。
And I don't say that the world will end, but it certainly needs a huge shift.
我并不会说这个世界一定会终结，但是一定要有一个很大的转变。
And the only person who can make that shift is you.
唯一能够让这个转变发生的是你们。
All right, what other question?
There is a question about how old a child can start learning Cranio. Since what age?
Can start learning. Is that the question?
Can start learning Craniosacral.
Well, what we did was we started at 8, 9, 10-year-olds, boys and girls, and the best thing is before puberty.
OK， 就是有个问题是小孩几岁可以开始学头荐骨？那 Etienne 的回答是，他们做法是让孩子8、9岁开始学，最好的时间就是在孩子进入青春期之前开始。And
we have worked with children. We have worked with children in puberty also, but that becomes a little bit difficult.
我们也有试过，就是孩子进入青春期后，我们开始跟他一起工作。其实进入青春期之后会稍微困难一些。
What are the questions?
小孩4岁对很多事情恐惧，带到自然看到蝴蝶也怕。Okay, my child is 4-year-old and is fearful of many things. When I bring him or her into nature, he or she is afraid of butterflies. How can I help her with so much fear, with lots of unknown?
Well, yeah, that's one of those problems. We are basically children from nature.
这是一个很根本的问题，就是我们没有把孩子远离自然以后会造成的问题之一。
But we grow up in boxes. in buildings, in big houses, and we never ever know nature.
在活在这些建筑物里面，小孩子就不再知道什么是大自然了。
So what's the solution? Yeah, to bring the child every opportunity you have to go with the child in nature, preferably also with other children. They will alleviate the angst about it with each other. They will start to follow each other, and it will be more easy if they have friends in nature.
解决之道就是一有机会就尽量带孩子去大自然，最好是带着其他孩子一起去。孩子跟孩子在一起，彼此会消减那个焦虑感，然后他们会彼此一起去探索，然后去协助彼此。
You know, that reminds me, the most healthy children are the children that eat dirt.
我想到一件事情，就是呢，
Oh.
最健康的孩子就是那个能够吃泥巴的小孩。
You know, when you go with children in nature, they will have to taste everything.
就是当你把孩子带去大自然里面，他们什么都要吃吃看的。
They will have dirty hands, dirty feet, dirty faces. They will connect to nature literally.
他们手啊、脚啊、脸都会很脏，他们就真的必须要跟自然完全的接触。
And here is our programming again. You know, they need to be clean. They shouldn't be dirty. While children who become dirty have the healthiest immune system of all.
然后我们呢被程式化，就是孩子要很干净啊，也不能弄脏啊。但是事实上呢，那些脏兮兮的小孩，他们的免疫系统是最强的。
And that again goes totally against our programming.
这个所以要这么做呢，跟我们的接受到的程式呢是完全相反的。
Okay, other questions?
There's one more question about what's the difference between a child learning craniosacral and an adult learning craniosacral. If a child start learning cranial, what will be the difference when this person start to learn in adulthood?
Well, that's a nice question. It will be much easier for a child to learn Cranio than for us.
这个问题很好，就是对于孩子来说呢，学习头肩骨比我们容易多了。
Of course, with those children, we don't explain the anatomy as thoroughly as with adults.
当然呢，对于孩子呢，我们跟教成人不一样，我们不会解释那些解剖学。
With children, it's all about feeling.
就是对于孩子来说，是关于感受的部分。
Their mind doesn't need to understand. Their mind is still undecided about mind and no mind yet.
然后他们的头脑不需要了解什么，因为他们的头脑仍旧处在一个有头脑的和没有头脑的那个两者之间的状态。
And when they become adults, they will have a much easier task in distinguishing between what's important to retain and what not.
所以当他们成长为成人之后呢，他们就会比较能够容易去分辨，到底哪一些资讯是有用的，哪一些资讯是无用的，然后存留那些有用的。
In other words, they will be much more centered in themselves and not so much followers of the teacher in later life.
换句话说呢，他们会比较能够待在自己的中心，在成长过程中比较不容易变成一个跟随者，或者是只是去听从老师的那种乖小孩。
that time they spent in no mind when they are a child makes them so confident, so much confident in themselves, in their own abilities.
他们就是能够在这些处于这种无念状态，对于孩子来说，他们会有更多的自信，然后也有能触及到自己的那个，也非常的相信自己的能力，对于自己的能力是非常确信的。
All right. Oh, I see a lot of questions in Chinese. I can't read that.
There's this one. Let me just read it first. Oh, okay. The reptilian brain exists in the three-dimension, and the union love is five-dimensional. I heard there are many indigo children and crystal children born in the earth. Is it for the purpose of elevating the dimension and frequency of this earth?
I don't know.
我不知道。Oh, and then she also has a question. Oh, okay, yeah.
Let me explain it in my words. Yeah, that reptilian brain is a very, very ancient survival mechanism, which is about totally being egoistic, basically.
以我的话来解释的话，就是爬虫脑呢是非常古老的脑。然后它是完全的想要生存，非常的自我、小我的。
There is no empathy for the other.
爬虫脑是没有同理心的，对他人。
So you could say that's a very low frequency.
所以频率很低。
When you convert to craniosacral and you come out of that reptilian brain, now you enter the realm of mammalian brains, which is the ability to be together. Reptiles cannot really be together. Mammals can, and humans have the ability to be even more close to each other. And you could say they can become one, which is, to me, the highest frequency that you can get as a human being. Becoming one means also becoming one with the universe.
就是当我们能够进入头荐骨的那个状态，我们从爬虫脑离开，进入哺乳类脑。哺乳类脑呢是可以一起的，爬虫脑呢是没有办法跟别人一起的。所以当我们进入哺乳类脑，我们就能够跟其他人一起。但是当我们变成人类脑的话，我们能够更靠近，甚至我们可以来到一个合一的状态。对我来说，那个就是最高的频率。而当我们说最高频率的那个合一，其实就是跟宇宙合一。
Other questions?
She also asked about the vaccination. Is vaccination going to change genes? Change genes? That's her question.
Of course not.
就是关于疫苗的问题，疫苗接种会不会对基因有所改变？那 Etienne 说，当然不会。
Our body is so intelligent that it can take any vaccine within reason. But I don't think that vaccination will change you as a human being.
我们的身体非常有智慧，它能够在某种范围内的承受不同的疫苗接种。我强调的是某种范围内的。然后我不认为接种疫苗会改变我们。
I will be traveling the end of September. I'm going to Europe, and from there, I don't know. And then to be able to travel, they need people to be vaccinated. So I have no problem whatsoever to get that vaccination.
我9月的时候就会去旅行，然后去欧洲。那因为就是旅行一定要能够接种，一定要接种疫苗。对于接种疫苗这件事情，我是没有问题的。
I have 100% trust in myself, in my body, and its immune system. It has survived for so long, millions of years almost, from being a single cell to a human being, and vaccinations will not harm us.
我对于我自己的身体、我的细胞、我的免疫系统有100%的信任。我们有了100万年的这个演化的基础，疫苗是没有办法伤害太大的伤害的。
And especially if you spend a lot of time or regularly go in the no-mind space, it reinforces your immune system, and it can handle either COVID or the vaccinations. There is no difference there.
尤其是当你有花足够的时间在这个无念的状态里面的时候，你的免疫系统会很强大，它能够面对 COVID 病毒，也能够面对疫苗。事实上，这两者是没有不同的。
But it's up to you.
但是仍旧还是看你自己。
So what are the questions, Kafisha?
There's this question. 6 months. My child is 6 months old and keep on crying in the night. I often wonder why there's some children they can sleep the whole night. Did I miss anything?
There is so much difference between children, and especially between moms. And don't forget, I guess it's your first child. And usually you have to learn how to deal with the child. It is not something that you will know from the very beginning, how to deal with the baby. It's something you need to learn.
每一个孩子都有很大的不同，每一个妈妈也都很不同。我在猜想，这可能是你的第一个孩子，就是你需要学会如何跟你孩子的相处。但是呢，这是一个你必须要在过程中学习的，因为你没有办法一开始就知道该怎么办。
And what I would suggest is have the child be checked out by a good craniosacral therapist.
我会建议的是，你找一个比较好的头荐骨执行师来检查一下你的小孩的状况。
And what I noticed is that rarely the problem is the child itself.
那我自己的经验就是呢，大部分呢问题都不是来自于孩子。
Children are mirrors of you, of us.
孩子是我们的镜子。
And they mirror even our deepest frustrations.
它会映照出我们内在最深的挫折。
And of course, I hope you breastfeeding the child. That might be a big reason that it's crying, if you don't.
我希望你是有喂母乳给小孩。很多时候，如果没有喂母乳，是小孩子哭闹的很重要的原因。
But if you relax more, the child will relax more. That's basically the bottom line.
但是呢，说到最后，就是你能够越放松，你的孩子就能够越放松。
I know that's not what you want to hear, but that's usually the case.
我知道这也许不是你想听到的答案，但是这是通常的结论。
Okay, one more question.
好，还可以再问一个问题。Let me check if there is another one. Oh, Candace
I
ask
see
another
one
one.
here.
Yeah.
Just as
Yeah,
an
the English.
made a
Yeah.
Yes. Shall I just practice empty my mind and daydreaming over these few days? Of course not. Make sure that your presentation is on paper, that you have it down. Once you have it down, you can forget about it. And that's when you go into no mind. You have to have it ready and then forget about it.
就是这边有个问题，就是说正在准备周末在准备他的一个报告，然后压力很大，那他是不是应该要在这几天练习无念啊，或是做白日梦啊，然后就能够帮助他把那个报告做得更好？然后 Etienne 就说当然不是，你必须要先把报告做好，写下来完成，完成之后你就可以把它给忘了，你必须要先完成你手上的工作。
Don't forget, we have a mind, and it is so used. We used it so much that always the mind needs to be satisfied.
你要知道呢，我们的头脑被用到非常多，用到一个程度是它也需要被满足。
Which means you have to make your presentation totally ready, and then your mind can go to rest.
意思就是说，你要让你的报告完成，完全的准备好之后，你的头脑才有可能放松。
And that again is so contradictory to what we were taught in school.
然而呢，这跟我们在学校里面被教导的是完全冲突的。
All right, one last one, the very last.
最后一个问题 I don't think there's another one. I think we've done all the questions. 还有吗？
Right.
最后一个。哦，没有了。OK, good.
All right. You can see behind me, it's dark now outside.
可以看到我后面已经天黑了。
So time for me to go to bed.
我应该要去睡觉了。
All right. Bye-bye.
谢谢大家，拜拜。谢谢你们的参与。Etienne 9月份有一个线上课程在讲疗愈的部分，就是他如何对他的身体有100%信心的那个部分。如果对这个主题有兴趣的话，可以去 Path 的网站或脸书。OK， 谢谢大家，谢谢你们参加，拜拜。